Well, everybody, thank you for joining very, very much for this topic today. I wanted to cover the agenda for you guys so you know what's coming up. We're going to have a little Plinko game, which I pre-wired some folks on here for. We'll talk about ourselves as fast as possible and also the upcoming webinars, 30 seconds, I promise. We're going to go into the decision for cloud, some of the feature overviews ever so briefly, and some of the myths. You probably are already here because you know what cloud offers. It's been a narrative and an investment from Atlassian for years now. But some of you may come in with still some trepidation or worries or some persistent myths out there. So we'll have a little pause at that point just to ask if there's anything that you guys want to cover. We're going to cover some tips for migrating to cloud, some context around that, some add-ons that can also help. Atlassian, by the way, provides a lot of great resources for helping with your migration, and we will mention those and cover those today for sure. But there's also some add-ons of third-party products that we're going to talk about as well, because that may be helpful for your use case. And sort of the meat and potatoes of it is choosing the method in which you're going to run your migration. And then we'll do our little Plinko. And so if you had sent me an email and if 3/4 of the way through this, you had to jump off, that's okay, you're still in the game. So I'll cover that in a second for those who have no idea what I'm talking about and just joined. And this demo is really about hurdle handling, right? And we can guess what some of the hurdles are, but we also feel that our webinars are important for folks to get questions answered that they have, and we can only know what your specific questions are if you bring it up. So we want you to pick our brains. So we do have carved out time for that, and like we always say with all of our webinars, we are open for interruptions here. As if we pass a topic or graze over it, not enough depth that you were expecting, and it's something that we can spend a minute or two on, stop us and ask. We have a good brain trust here. So just keep that in mind. We don't mind being interrupted for sure. It's a very democratic webinar, okay? So like I mentioned, and for folks who just joined, we're giving away t-shirts, but you have to earn it with a little bit of luck. Send me an email. The email address is right there. Send it before, in the next 45 minutes or 40 minutes, please. Might as well do it now so you don't forget. In the subject line, just pick one of those products. If you can see behind me, we have this little Plinko game, and there's product logos in each of the bottom. We actually set this up for Summit, and then Summit was canceled. Yay, right? But we'll drop a ball, and we'll see which product it lands on. If it lands on the product you picked, you get a t-shirt. All right? So please send me an email with one of those products in the subject line. There has to be nothing else, and we're all good. And if you win, we'll take care of the logistics afterwards. Sound good? So the hosts or panelists today, and David, I apologize, I didn't include you. So don't be too hurt. Maybe we'll replace you, or have you replaced Nitish. But we have Manohar as a founding member, VP of Engineering for Trundl, and Manohar oversees just about everything in the company as it relates to engineering and support. Nitish as well. Nitish sits in our Hyderabad office, and he is head of managed services for Trundl. And I'm a co-CEO, really acting CMO of the company, and drive a lot of the business development marketing. So all of us are very accessible on email. Ping us anytime. Last thing in terms of logistics, we're doing a couple other webinars coming up. If you're interested, or anybody, I will share these slides with all of you, so you'll have these links, but we're going to cover Jira Service Management versus ServiceNow, a topic we've covered before. It should be pretty interesting. We'll try to take a very unbiased view, a 14-point comparison between the tools. And then also we're running an Ops Genie, using Ops Genie, kind of a hands-on lab, Ops Genie and Jira Service Management coming up. So that's there. Awesome. All good so far, everybody? Everybody can still see my screen. That'd be way too far to find out if I hadn't. Right. You're all good? Okay. John, thanks for joining. So again, the decision to go to cloud, You probably covered a lot of these things before, but what's the advantage of going to cloud? It's fast startup, return on investment's great. I mean, if you talk about the total cost of ownership baked in system admins and infrastructure and all these other things, it makes a lot of sense with the pricing dynamics between cloud and server. Obviously, the narrative has changed now with February 2nd having passed, but the end of server sale announcement and the slow walk to remove server as an option, no new server sales are occurring at this point, February 2nd on. So if you made the decision to stick with server for another year or so, you may qualify some incentives to move to cloud, but that communication was pretty heavy up front. And you may be in a position where you front-ended, and created some bandwidth for your server license, and you have a lot of, headway for adding users. But we're starting already to talk to Atlassian customers who said, "Oh, wait a second, we're adding more users, and it's already too late to upgrade with server." So, like it or not, there's these decisions are coming to the forefront, and Atlassian's put a crap ton of investment in cloud. And have parity, as close to parity as possible, functionality with server or self-hosted option. There's also data center, right? So are there any, are you guys, is anybody on this call, and I would allow anybody to speak at this point, have either a myth or a worry, and a myth would presume that it's not correct, that's not true. You guys have anything that is worrying you with moving to cloud if you're on a self-hosted option at this point and feel like your company's being forced to do it? Is that a narrative that you guys are dealing with at this point? Or anything you'd want us to address as to any trepidations going to the cloud? Or are you guys all pretty pretty aware? If I get silence, I'll move on. Just totally fine. Mike, thanks for joining.
Plugin compatibility.
Ah, yes, a classic. You can bring up, I don't know who spoke, but you can bring that up at any point if there's any particular plugin, but that is obviously a critical part of just evaluating what you have to do to go to cloud and the migration, talking about whether that plugin doesn't have a cloud option, or it doesn't have functional parity, or if you need to find a substitute out there, or in fewer cases, you're sort of up the creek, right? I'm just curious, maybe just for the sake of folks like David and Manohar, folks who are here, is there a particular plugin you're thinking of?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
We haven't looked into it too much.
Okay. Well, you are free to bring it up at any point. We do have, this is a list where we try to compile the things where there may be some points where people are still sticking with server. And again, this is sort of a moot point now that the new server sales are over. But Manohar or David, and which one of these seems to be a little bit more common than others as to why people historically didn't go to cloud? Was it installing custom apps?
Yeah, custom apps for sure. And some customers have a lot of requirements where they want Jira to function like completely different than what it is intended to. So they do kind of stay back on server, and obviously themings and configurator was one of the things, and they couldn't kind of really push the changes from the sandboxes to the productions. There was kind of a worry for some of the customers. And obviously, some enterprise customers did have a concern about, the control over the features that gets released to the cloud, right? And now those all being kind of handled and addressed as we move forward with the cloud-first approach. Yeah, we're hoping to see more open-minded approach towards moving to cloud.
Yeah, and I would just add some of those items on there you can't really do on the cloud side because they're not things you need to worry about anymore, right? So configuring logging and profiling information, that's something that Atlassian's handling for you because you're in the cloud. So you really don't need that as part of the transition.
Okay, cool. So one of the things I wanted to bring across is a common theme, and this often gets to be kind of the case because or a case for when maybe a company brings in a partner to help if they're not attempting to do it themselves is just the number one factor, of course, is to treat it like a project, because it is a project, and having the right stakeholders and participants in to support for such a thing. And sometimes, that probably feels like it's a moot point or just assumed, but look at your migrations as a project for sure, a robust one, obviously important one. There's a lot of sensitivity around things, but thinking of all the resources that you need to be able to do a migration. This webinar is a little backwards. I'm going to start with some tips, and then we're going to end with some of the migration methodologies. We're going to pass through these things. Again, these things will be in your hand. I'll send over a PDF of all these slides. But we're going to cover some tips for those who are kind of where the rubber meets the road with running a migration. We're going to get scaled back into more theory in a minute or two, right after this segment. So don't worry. So some of the tips here, obviously you have to check your current server version against the latest long-term supported releases. That's probably the first thing you need to do. There's a link there with a Atlassian link, a Confluence link where those things are, kind of determine the upgrade requirements to go to cloud. Number two, obviously, as mentioned, you have to review the add-on capability. It can be pretty labor intensive, but with each add-on, you can check the upgrade checker, and we do provide a link for some of the other assets there, but you should have access to an upgrade checker. MG, are there any restrictions to anybody using that? And having access to an upgrade checker, is that which do or don't qualify for that?
Not really. I think most of the apps do have that.
Okay. All right. Great. And obviously, use cases vary on your methodology, which we'll be covering a little bit later. Addressing scripting. So scripting was a big, item that for those long-lived sort of Atlassian customers, especially those who used or built their Atlassian instance organically, and in the earlier days when there was a lot of custom scripting as opposed to, maybe perhaps when the add-on marketplace was a little bit less mature in the early days, or if there's just a special functionality that was put into the Jira instance through scripting, that often becomes problematic with bringing over that capability. But it's all dependent on how it was written, what framework it was in, what it does, and things like that. Script runner scripts to the cloud may have avenues, but scripts in server are usually just generally problematic. It's one of those things that in a webinar, we can't really address the evaluation of it or the scoping of it without really knowing the specifics, but it's a big item. How often do you guys, MG, how often do you run into scripting being a big problem with migration customers?
This was the case a few years ago for sure, but now less and less, as the marketplace started maturing and the script runner and some kind of advanced plugins, they are providing equal capabilities on, a lot of add-on vendors they catch up with this cloud first approach because Atlassian has been promoting it for a few years now. And if you see the number of add-ons that are really available on both cloud and server, with the feature parity being less and less over a period of time, it's quite a lot now. It wasn't the case a few years ago. So I would say the trend has been that it's been less now, but it was very evident a few years ago.
Okay, thank you. Instance size can be a problem. So if it's over 10 gigabytes, it may need to be split during the migration. This isn't too common, but it is a thing. This one pretty important. Obviously, is figuring out whether you're going to cloud standard or cloud premium or enterprise. This is basically directly off of Atlassian.com and Atlassian strategy for providing more functionality, usually aligned with where you are in the sort of life cycle or scale at which you're using Jira software or other tools. This happens to be a Jira software example, but there's Cloud Premium for Jira Service Management, Confluence, other products. So having a full understanding of this is pretty big. It may be a regulatory thing. It may be IP allow listing might be your big thing from the security standpoint, and you should be going to Cloud Premium just for that reason alone. but it's different for everybody. But this is one of those things that Atlassian does a really great job of providing it. Automation on its own is a fairly big topic about figuring out what's possible, what you can do. And if you need any help in understanding the manner in which automation can help you, that it may be a fait accompli, and the answer will reveal itself of whether you should be in standard or premium. Any questions on this topic itself? Okay.
I have a question on the previous.
Yes.
When you say the size 10 gig, are you including the Jira database and the attachments, or just the database?
It's the overall size. When we try to take a full backup, it does give it's primarily the XML backup that gets generated as part of the migration, and you can kind of leave behind the attachments and addons because they become part of your home directory and as well as your working directory setup. So it's primarily that XML backup, full XML backup that gets generated. Sometimes some instances have a pretty large tagging on them, so that will go on, but that's a very rare case. Like we usually don't see this situation happening. Usually the XML backup size are, less than what we're telling here.
Sound good?
I think you're saying that you can't determine your size until you do an XML backup.
Probably not. We may have to defer to that. I wish Nitish was here.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah.
We can find out though.
Yeah, I've got close to 300,000 issues, so that's why I'm asking. Over 15 years. So.
Oh yeah, probably. You might definitely run into this issue, but
Okay.
Again, we'll get a precise answer on what exactly is included in here and what can be separated out of this backup.
Okay. All right.
Cool. Awesome. Turn off notifications. It's a little thing, but everybody will appreciate it. During the migration, check the user directory. MG, any just pointers on checking the user directory here that you may want to just highlight?
Yeah, especially where you're trying to convert some of the user emails, or you're trying to change the domains of emails and that kind of stuff. It gets tricky at times because Atlassian handles the users a little bit differently than what the server version does. So we just need to be cautious there. We ran into some of the problems with another large customer where we did migrate. But yeah, it's a proper planning and making sure that we are aware of the size of the conversion. We can avoid some of these issues. Yeah, but mostly Atlassian will take care of it as part of the transition. But especially when you are changing the domains and all, it could really mess up things. So we just have to be a little bit cautious there.
Awesome. Prepare ahead to test the migration. So we use JQuil to sort of randomly check issues earlier on so that you can nobody wants on their migration weekend to have anything left up in the air in terms of timing or scheduling or how much, how long a certain step would take or what the expectation is. So we run those queries and you repeat them again, and you can hold them against a baseline. So these sort of test case scenarios, it's important to have those be robust and pretty expansive. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, MG. Does that pretty much cover it? Good. Oops, accidentally went forward. Number 9, have multiple UAT migrations. This is kind of tied to number 8 there. You want to make sure your planning is accurate and foolproof. And again, no drama on the weekend. For number 10 there, just the last one in terms of our tips. During the import session, check the 2 import options, import data and import media. This is something that typically Nitish speaks to, But if you have any questions about that, that can sometimes be problematic on proper file formatting. MG, I'm assuming it would be too much to ask you to speak to that one.
Yeah, I definitely don't want.
Okay. Let us know if you guys have any problems on that one. I apologize, we're not able to speak to it more directly. Let's see here. Okay, awesome. So just a couple add-ons we wanted to speak to before we went to the methodologies. So Exalate is one of them. When you have multiple customer-facing cloud sites, sort of like, let's say you manage a lot of vendors and you sort of want to be able to, I'm going to put quotes around this, slow walk your migration in a gradual manner. Exalate lets you sort of spin up multiple cloud sites for vendors and then use Escalate between those cloud sites and syncing it to the backend data center so that it can be qualified as an issue. Is there anything you want to speak to, MG, on Exalate?
Yes, I think, we have seen some use cases where customers were like, at an org level, not everybody were ready to kind of move. Like, some teams have heavy scripting done on for their project specifically, and they would want to take more time, but some teams are ready to move on, and then, they want to test it out. We have seen use cases where, we use the cloud side and server side at the same time, teams work parallelly on both the systems, and still there is a dependencies, use add-ons like Exalate, to keep those projects in sync, keep those issues in sync. And also obviously, sometimes, not all the time, the customers would want to go from single instance to, single cloud for whatever reasons, right? Some may want to kind of separate the customer facing instances and, the service management instances from their development instances. So obviously, for those specific use cases, Exalate is a perfect add-on to kind of keep things on sync between two instances. And, some of our customers use Exalate, and we were able to solve some of those complex use cases.
Yeah, Maria, do you want to say anything? You good? You're on.
Oh, no.
You're good? Okay, cool.
You've done it nice. Thanks.
Okay, good. Awesome. Another one, Ops Hub, helpful. And we're going to get into this into a second on the methodologies, but going from legacy software, legacy sort of ALM tool, using Ops Hub to kind of take a bit of the drama out and kind of supporting a migration where you need more of the work items, comments, attachments, full history and traceability be brought along. MG, anything you want to add to Ops Hub here as a tool?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I can speak, in terms of our direct experience on using Ops Hub as a platform, right? Especially some of those legacy tools like an IBM Doors, like, you can think of like it's a pretty old legacy tool. It's really hard to script it out without missing, entities across two systems. So Ops Hub has that built-in set up everything. Like, it allows us to kind of do more, focus more on planning and mapping than to really write those complex scripts and, scrubbing the data off of the tool. We are actively using it right now for multiple stuff. And again, Ops Hub is also capable enough to directly migrate between, two different Jira, clouds. It's also like, if you want to kind of merge two instances, that kind of stuff. We are testing it, I would say, but we are pretty confident that from what we have seen so far, it's a very capable tool. And, we got a direct, insight into what the development roadmap looks like, and then a great support team obviously makes it much more easier for us to, solve any blockers.
Okay, awesome. So here's back on the methodologies, guys, and we'll keep this slide up because I think it should spur some discussions, or it may. After this, we'll do that Plinko game for sure. So in a scenario where you're going from Jira Cloud or server, and you are going to, well, again, these slides are a little bit older than the recent end of server sales, so you may want to ignore the target being server, but you could think of it sort of an on-premise version, or sorry, self-hosted option. But if you're going from a brand new instance, and the target is an existing cloud instance, sorry, or the existing cloud instance is one where you don't want to keep the data, The methodology you'd want to do, it requires an XML export, but you would use the Jira site importer. So again, the target is something you're wiping clean, or it's a new instance in which you don't have to save that data, right? There's the other option where you're going to an existing cloud and you want to retain the current data. The methodology is a little bit different. You use Atlassian's Cloud Migration Assistant. It's a free add-on from Atlassian. It's made a big difference in customers who really want to try to do this themselves. Anything about this, MG, or should I go through until I've revealed everything?
No, I think you just
okay. Awesome, great. So then there's obviously going from a non-Atlassian software to Jira Cloud. It brings up a lot of questions, right? To be able to qualify what your methodology should be. So what tool you're coming from, what types of things you're bringing over, the tool you're coming from, what are the export or output options with that? It can determine what you're facing. So the first option B is if the source or legacy application you have has a CSV export, that's a good sign. It's like, I don't know, 10, 15% of the cases we've seen, but that's fairly straightforward. Option 2 is if there's no CSV option, your next bet is on JSON APIs and writing script to pass that payload through. It's doable, but sometimes it's tricky. This is where OpsHub, the migration manager use case, may be helpful. And then option 3, if there's no APIs or the data being asked to port is too complex, we're talking about a custom Python script. This is one of those things where you sort of have to have that discussion as whether it's worth it to bring it over. MG, I don't know what % of use cases you run into where it was only option 3, and of those, they, you ended up not going forward with a custom Python script, but that's there. And, just for fun, we put together some little intimidation factor things on how, on generally an item about how difficult something may be. Now with option 2 there at OpsHub, that brings that 9 down to some other number that's lower than 9. But without OpsHub, it's pretty tricky.
Patrick, one question.
Yes.
Hey, Madhu. This is Madhu.
Hello.
Regarding the add-ons, like the one which you were talking about the topic. So in the server or data center edition, we have the add-ons like a script runner or like a PowerScript or anything which is related to Groovy scripting. So when we migrate to the cloud, so we cannot able to move the scripts, right? So it's not going to support. Am I correct? So we have
that's a soft yes, right, MG? Unless it's
yeah, not all. I would say no. They have compatibilities, and as these add-ons have been catching up with the cloud game a lot, and Adaptive is being one of the 4.
So we are using the PowerScript add-on, which is a C Prime one. So they have all the shell scripts. So there is no option to export the scripts. Even I asked Atlassian whether they can copy the shell scripts directly to the cloud, because it's a cloud, we don't know where it is. So it's everything is rewriting the scripts. That's where a little bit tricky. And again, even though it's a site export the instance from the data center edition, and again we import it to cloud, you will get all the custom fields and everything, but again the scripts you need to rewrite. So it's a lot of pain.
Very use case specific. Obviously, add-on to add-on, it varies a lot. So that's the reason why there is no kind of a single soft yes or no. Say about it. It's very use case to use case, and that is the very first thing we do. Whenever a customer approaches us with regards to migration, this is the very primary question we ask. What are your add-on ecosystem?
Yeah. So even the email, the issue is there, like Adaptive Script Runner, several add-ons, so which cannot as a soft push. We need to do even whether it does those functionalities, whatever it's work in the server edition, it may work or not. We don't know.
True.
So until we need to do.
That's why we recommend, right? We recommend multiple UATs to make sure that we are all understanding what we are going to gain and what we're going to lose. Obviously, there are gains and loss when it comes down to cloud.
The server.
So it's just we need to weigh our options.
Yeah, that's where like even I was doing the POC and all, like I was getting the challenge in like getting the data. So it's a lot of work, rework is there. Yeah, that's why I'm doing the assessment and all.
Yep,
Yeah.
and we are hopeful that the vendors would, add-on vendors are having these as a huge items in their roadmap to kind of really cover that gap as much as possible. We have seen that these add-ons have come far, a long way in kind of really reducing that parity between functionalities and as well as what can be
Got it.
migrated over.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. So even the other thing, like for like we have cloud configuration add-on. Sorry, I forget the exact name. Like a site import, there is another method, right? You can export the projects from like a server to cloud using the add-on, cloud migration assistant add-on, right? So is there any like a future like they're going to include service desk projects also, or like right now it's only software and business projects only, right? Are there any plans they include service desk also?
Yeah, we are hopeful for that. I don't have an answer for that right now. Yeah, we'll
Okay.
have to probably, go back and check.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fine. Thank you. So I know like we have like several apps that's to integrate also, like so people were thinking like it's always using like a service now. They want to integrate with the Jira Cloud, whether it is possible or not. And again, like the tempo, right? If it won't work in the cloud, right? I don't know, like that's what I came to know, but like still I need to do the assessment on that one. So how it works in the tempo in the cloud for the Jira version? Yeah.
There are different stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, like the POCs or the UAT migrations is where we would
Yeah.
have to determine all of those things into a. So we never rush the migrations because we know there are still challenges around them.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
until it's a pretty vanilla instance, right?
Got it.
There is no risk involved, so we just do
Mm.
that assessment upfront. That's
Got
what
it.
gives us enough confidence to move on.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah, that's true. Okay. So the one challenge, like the other challenge which you are facing is like we have the data center. It's always very tricky, like a direct export the data center backup, right, and import into the cloud. It's always been an issue because there are like some entity, like if you're going to export the backup from the data center, there will be like a called entities.xml file. So it will be all stored as a the cluster because it's a data center, it has the cluster properties. So it will be a problem, it cannot import. So we need to just I'm giving the like what I face the problems. Yeah, we have that issue. So Atlassian only they can able to clean that entries in the XML file, then they can able to import. So we cannot do it. So every time we have to dependency with that Atlassian team if we want to do POC also.
Yeah, definitely. There are those challenges which we cannot deny, and we'll have
That's
to
right.
do them. That's the reason why our team will
Yeah.
have access. I mean, like these kind of things, team has already seen these use cases. They know exactly there is no way you can skip them, but we know how to navigate that particular problem. So
Yeah.
we can kind of put together a required plan and make sure that we are giving enough time for all those known issues or the known routes that we need to take. So yeah, that's part of the overall migration planning, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Thanks, Madhu, for adding up
Thank
some
you.
of those points.
Yeah.
Thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you.
So I also, just for the sake, here's some more information about the Jira Site Importer for that first scenario, going to a fresh instance, and the Jira Cloud Migration Assistant, where you're going to an existing instance and you want to keep that data. These, again, we'll send these over and they'll be in your hands. I also have some Atlassian documentation and support avenues, some resources here. These links will be given to you if these are helpful in addition to this content. And then it's Plinko time. I mean, this is going to be the most underwhelming game ever because I'm just going to drop a ball, it'll make some noises, and that's it. That's all that'll happen. But did everybody get their emails in who wanted to participate? I don't know if I heard a lot of pinging from my phone here, but if you've got, for 20 seconds, you can send an email to me, patrick@trundle.com, and put an Atlassian product. I think we've got much of them represented in the email. I'll count it if it comes in the next 15 seconds. But if you let me know right now if you need me to hold up before, the very exciting little raffle here for a t-shirt. All good? Speak up. Hey, Joe, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, can you pick a number between 1 and 5? There's 5 holes at the top here, and I don't want to be seen as being impartial. Can you, including 1 and 5, can you pick a number, please?
Yeah, do you want me to pick it out loud right now?
Yes.
3.
3. Oh, that's right in the middle. Okay. All right, here we go. Oh, it's just going to be horrible. Here we go. Oh, yeah, very exciting. I think Jira Software won. Jira Software, the Jira Software logo is there on the 6th slot. So if Jira Software was emailed to me by one of you, let's arrange to get you a t-shirt. And we've got 4 or 5 options here. I'll email you and we can figure out what that would be. But it's open discussion time. So if you guys have other things that you want to talk about, pick our brains on, please, we've got time for it.
Can you talk a little bit about the user directories? Like currently we're using an internal user directory in server, and we have almost as many inactive users as active users. Will we have to create accounts, IDs in the cloud for all those inactive ones so we don't lose our history? Can you just talk a little bit about, those are some of the questions that people are throwing at me and I can't answer them. Yeah.
David, do you want to take that with regards to the internal directory users?
David, you there?
Sorry, guys, I was on mute. Honestly, with the migration of the internal directory users to the cloud, that's probably something that Tish is the best to answer to.
Got it.
I know that don't have him today.
Okay.
Yeah, but as far as I know, what I could say is, yes, you have to create those accounts, but keeping them inactive like that, because if you are not adding them, if you're not migrating them over, and then there is an history associated, metadata associated with those users, you cannot really map them. So you have to migrate them. But yeah, you don't end up paying any licenses for them. Obviously, we'll just keep them inactive. They don't have a license, but they are there in the system, and Atlassian do generate a token for them as well on the cloud.
Okay, yeah, that was one question the director had. Will she have to pay for 751, I think, inactive users
No.
to get the history over? Okay,
Yeah. That's not true. Yeah, you still create them, but you don't end up adding licenses.
okay, all right. Yeah, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I think we
That
need to
kind of
uncheck that
answers.
like active, right? We need to uncheck that option, like go to each user and whether it's active or inactive, we need to uncheck that one. Then only otherwise it will consume license.
Yes, we have to make sure that they are not added to the core group, Jira Software core groups. I believe Nitish would have been answering that much more technically, much more better. But as far as I know, you wouldn't be ending up paying for any of those inactive users for sure.
Okay. Gets me started, and I can answer some other questions. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And anytime you have these questions, just email us, and we'll try and give you guys resources. And if it's possible, one of our migration engineers can kind of answer those questions for you directly as well. So yeah, we have done a lot of free consulting hours, just making sure that the tools are being used in the right way and other stuff. So happy to do that. Just drop us an email wherever it's possible. We'll help you guys.
Anything else on anybody's brain? I also have some backup slides here, guys. Other topics that you may want to cover, need to cover, understanding the hosting model. I did have an analysis of a 3-year license cost. This does not fully bake in what it would cost if you were on server to, what your infrastructure costs per hour and system admins and stuff like that. This is purely licensed as a reference to what they would have cost, over 3 years per user. Because some folks, don't really understand, how Atlassian pricing is, it works, or the strategy behind it. So those will be there in backup.
What would you guys say your average timeline would be for migration?
That's definitely hard to answer. It all
Yeah.
depends on what you got in the source. But from what we have done in the past, if the simplest instance with no complexity, 2 weeks, with ranging from 3 months as well. We have done something within that range. 2 weeks to 3 months.
Would you say 3 months was your most complicated?
Yeah, the complex one was like 3 months, yes. Yeah, they had a lot of add-ons. They had some scripts, and they had a lot of user convention requirements, and yeah, we had to do multiple UATs and that stuff.
And I think on one of the slides, there was a bullet point about internal SMTP. We have a simple use case in Jira, but heavily used by C-level execs to email an email address, and then Jira tickets get opened. I'm wondering is that affected in the cloud by any chance? Or
Nope,
does that functionality still stay the same?
No, you can still do that on cloud. The incoming email handlers are still as good as servers are, if I'm not wrong. But yeah, so David, do you want to take a stab at it more in detail?
Yeah, I think the only difference is, yeah, you can still set up email addresses to be sort of collectors for new issues. I think the only difference is you're not going to be able to then, in the cloud, you're not going to be able to leverage your company's own domain email addresses for that email address. So if you say today your C-level execs use a helpdesk@yourcompanyname.com to send those issues in, you won't be able to do that. You'll have a separate new email address that'll be used as part of the Jira Cloud system. So same functionality, just a different email set.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Thank you.
One question that came up, can you talk a little bit about the security of the cloud with the SolarWinds breach and potential for other supply chain attacks? Is that a real concern?
Well, we believe, Atlassian is pretty secure itself, but yeah, that's a very broad question.
Yeah, maybe Atlassian answer that one than us.
That's true. Yeah, I guess Joe is on the call.
Throw Joe under the bus.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I can pull some links here, and I'll throw it in the chat for some resources for everyone to review.
Yeah, I was just sharing their security page.
Yeah, the trust page. Yeah, that talks about all the measures Atlassian takes on how they are securing the user data.
What advice do you have for an organization that wants to migrate both Jira and Confluence from server to cloud? Is there recommendations on doing one before the other, doing them simultaneously? Is there anything significant there in making those decisions?
Nope. I mean, like if there's a possibility, we would always love to take both of them at a time, but there is no direct dependencies as such. We have done combined migrations. We have done separate migrations, irrespective of whether they're on same platform or different platforms, the integration will still continue to work exactly the way they are intended to. So there is no concern there. So there is no one rule as such. We have done both. But from our planning and from our overall effort estimation, or rather to that fact, the ease of doing, we would prefer to do everything at once. That way, you don't have to kind of be on two different systems, and you could rather move all at once. You can consolidating, right? That's the whole point. You want to consolidate and make sure that you're standardizing your tool set. So if given opportunity, I would say just do both at once.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Well, actually, one follow-up, will you be doing a seminar on migrating Confluence from server to cloud?
Patrick, do we have anything?
No, sorry, I forgot that was a question for me. I just was staring off at the screen. Possibly, not in the works, but how divergent it would be from the other general assets and the kind of carryover or the overlapping, I would probably need to talk with UMG and the team on that one.
Yeah, I mean, like, especially when it comes down to the complexity, it's not much as Jira, because Jira has a lot more components and, a lot more moving parts when it comes to migrations than Confluence. So we've often seen Confluence as much more easier task. So our focus, I know that we know that, a lot of questions are around Jira, less on Confluence. So maybe we just ignore that fact.
Okay, I guess I probably should have asked that question first, is the complexity of migrating Confluence as great as Jira. So I get that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But again, if you have very specific questions around Confluence migration, do shoot us an email. We're happy to provide you resources or some answers there.
Can somebody speak to the general complexity behind Bitbucket migration? Since it seems like when we started looking at migrating some of our Atlassian apps, it seemed like Bitbucket was sort of on its own in terms of add-ons and tools to help with migration. I was wondering if anybody can shed some light to how complex migrating that would be.
David, I guess you have done enough of Bitbucket stuff, so I would.
Yeah, I think that's one we would have to look at a little bit more in depth. We've done several server migrations as well as cloud to server migrations. I haven't personally done a server to cloud, but as you said, there's a little bit more complexity involved there, because now you're talking about your Git repos in addition to the application itself. So, Bitbucket itself is actually a pretty lightweight application, but the repositories that you have, your code base is a whole nother layer to peel back. So I think it would depend a lot on how big those Git repositories are, where they're stored currently, and that would all play into the migration. But we can dig up a little bit more information there and get back with you.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I think somebody had mentioned migrating specific Jira projects to the cloud. So our use case is that we have a business unit that is now under a different parent company. And one of the options is, and we're trying to do a hard split, right? So one of the options that was talked about was to identify their Jira projects and only migrate those Jira projects to their own cloud instance. All the things that I've looked at seem to be a wholesale migration. We were wondering if there's anything out there to do things piecemeal.
You can do piecemeal. Atlassian has come up with a utility that allows us to do that. Exactly. You can pick and choose what projects you are, but the current utility doesn't support migration of a Jira service desk type project. Straight out. You might probably take the issues and take the overall, convert them into a standard project and then take it over. Probably you may end up losing some data there if you're doing that project. But if it's a software projects or business projects, you're good to go. You can pick and choose a project and then migrate them over.
Is that an Exalate use case, MG, or no?
I mean, like Atlassian utility is our first choice, obviously. It gives us more there, but yeah, there's always a chance, right? Observe, we can migrate them from Jira Service Management project to cloud, and then kind of shut down the server project. Yeah, that's the best, and that's another best case scenario for Exalate and Observe.
So is Atlassian able to manage the certificates all? like so in server and all, we used to manage SSL certificates and all, right? I don't think so. There will be no
Yeah,
certificates.
there is nothing you need to do on the cloud for that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's still secure. It's just managed by them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So, and the other thing like related to like other Atlassian tools like a Fisheye, Crucible, right? So those are like they're not supporting to the cloud, right? We don't have the associated cloud versions.
Yeah, they all still have to be on-prem.
Okay, on-prem only. So if suppose like some so companies are using Fisheye Crucible, so what about their approach? They have to stop anyway. There is no other option.
No, they'll continue to use it. I don't think there is anything in particular.
The integration between the cloud and like the server edition will still work.
It should work. Yeah,
it should work. Okay,
yeah,
okay.
It should work respective of platform. Again, it all depends on some of the security policies, network policies that each company has. To what extent they are allowing the external applications on cloud to interact with their on-prem versions. Like it's a controlled environment, but it's doable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So mostly we may have get like issues with like users like so the cloud users and the other application users, which is like a server edition. There may be some issues. Yeah, that may be like it needs to look into it separately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty much good.
Everybody can get 5 minutes back. We can do more questions though too. We can stay on either way. But thank you. Did anybody, by the way, who's still on, I haven't checked my email, say Jira software?
Yes, I did.
There we go, Karen. Yes, you earned it. I was gonna feel really bad if no one did it, and then So okay, Karen. All right.
Okay, cool.
I'll get you on email, Karen.
Okay, thank you. This was very informative. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for
Thank
your
you guys for
participation.
joining.
Thank you for everybody.
Bye.
And thank you, Joe. And thank you, David and G.
Thanks, guys.